Looking good, Brian.
Ohio political news coming at you here live on a Sunday night. It's Mother's Day. Did you guys remember that it's Mother's Day? And you better, because your wives are all mothers, so or your moms. How's it going today, guys? Doing all right?
Pretty good.
Doing great.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Yeah, go ahead and say something, Brian. I think you're really low on the mic. Go ahead and say something.
Yeah, it's
there
Brian Massey. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Leonard Gilbert, how you behind your own name there? How you doing, man? Good to see you.
All good. Now I'm having problems. So you got everybody rattled.
I got everybody riled because there was some big event going on Friday at the State Central Committee, and I think you guys are all aware of it. The party endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy. So we're going to be talking about that coming up here in just a second. Also, we've got a great guest coming up in about 15, 20 minutes, Tom Zawistowski. Tom Z will be joining us, and he's phenomenal. Okay, so make sure you stick around for that. He's phenomenal, he just knows what's happening in the world of politics, and he was the original for the state of Ohio. He was the original Tea Party leader, Portage County, but throughout Ohio. So he's coming up with that there. Okay, so we got the three amigos here. That doesn't look too bad. We haven't used that for a while. Oh. All right, let's talk about some of the things that were going on here. The state party on Friday endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy to be the governor in 2026. Okay, and this to some people they're kind of saying, well, why is the state party endorsing somebody so early? Because there's still a year until we do the primary, and then we have about 6 months after that until we actually have the November election. So it's not this November, it's next November that we will be voting for governor. So it's kind of like, why would the party do that? And the party's never done it before. It's never endorsed someone this early in the campaign. So we'll have to see why. Oh, by the way, if you're in the chat, please chat away. We'll try to get as many of them as we can. We'll make you part of the show, okay? So chat away. Vivek is awesome, and he will make a great governor. I agree with those sentiments. I agree with that a lot. So we're going to be talking about that. Let me bring you in, Shelby. I know you're short on time and stuff, and let's just cut right to the chase here for a minute, because there's a million things I can talk about too as a pro supporter of Vivek and endorsing. But I want to get your take right off the bat. You're on the other side of it. You're also on the State Central Committee, District 20. You are not in favor of endorsing Friday, and you're not the only one. There were others. Why was that? You want to just give us a rundown on that, okay, please?
Sure, and you were there, and people have to understand that there was really a two-tiered vote when that came about. Is that we had the first tier was whether we were going to endorse a non-incumbent candidate, and then once Vivek won that, it was pretty much baked in that he was going to carry the second vote, whether to endorse or not. So I just want to make that point of clarification. But where I'm on the other side of it is that one, you as you stated, this is so early on in the primary. We're even pre-primary because there's still time for candidates to file, and it just sends a bad message to the people, and particularly some of my constituents reached out to me and told me that this is too early, that we're deciding for them, and we're effectively taking anybody else that may even be planning to enter the race. We're shutting them out or making it difficult or for them to participate.
Right.
So that's my primary position on that. But in a higher level, and Leonard we were alluding to this before we went live. We're doing all of these political machinations, and what I feel is that it really boils down to: are we going to address trying to get abortion out of our Constitution, and which candidate is going to support a personhood bill. I know that there's some legislation that's trying to get active in the House along those lines. And I'm just here to tell you that if we don't address these issues, particularly the life issue, it doesn't matter if it's Vivek or Dave Yost or even a Democrat, the Lord is not going to bless this state. He may bless individuals, but as a whole, if we continue to have abortion as a constitutional right, we will not have the blessings of God on this state. Now, I've just come back from New Mexico, where it's totally run by leftists, and I'm telling you that when it comes down to policy-wise and everyday living, Ohio is going down the same path, even though we have a Republican supermajority. What do we have? What do you have out there? You have pot dispensaries, you have casino gambling, and you have a love of abortion. What do you have in Ohio? Pot dispensaries, casino gambling, and abortion in the Constitution. So we need to get serious as conservatives and address these moral issues that are going to continue to erode our life, our quality of life, no matter who becomes governor. And I'll leave it at that for right now.
Yeah, okay, that's really good. And you forgot one other thing that Ohio has: extremely high property taxes, state taxes, county taxes, taxes galore. Okay, so we're actually losing population here in this state, and that was one of the things that Ramaswamy talked about. That we've got to do something to bring the population back in. We got to lower the taxes. And then, of course, you were talking about the abortion issue, too. We'll have to work on that. Now, we had a constitutional amendment change on that, which is really bizarre. But, yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done. Tourism in Ohio needs to be upgraded substantially. So those are some of the things. Let me just play something here. I got a couple, because I didn't have time to edit this, so let me just find out where it's at. But I got this off Channel 5, and it's a little bit of
Reporter Morgan Trout has been covering the race to get to the nomination, and she talked today with Ramaswamy.
The Ohio Republican Party says they want to move forward with a new type of GOP leader.
Okay, now there's the one thing right here. I'm going to stop it right there. To me, the reason for the endorsement was this was a big part of it. We had to go in another direction with the leadership, somebody young, somebody vibrant, somebody energetic, somebody that can raise incredible amounts of money, which he can do all those things. Somebody who's an insider to Trump, the whole MAGA movement in Washington, D.C. He's right inside with all that. Plus, he had the endorsements of I believe J.D. Vance, I believe he got it, or at least Bernie Moreno, I know that for sure. He got the endorsement of Trump. Laura Trump called the committee on the phone line through the speaker and encouraging everyone to endorse. So, but this is part of the reason here. He is part of the MAGA movement, which has turned Ohio red. And Trump has done it. It's not the wine. Okay, it's not the establishment that's done it. They'd like to keep everything purple if they could.
Ramaswamy.
Do the right thing for the people and the right thing for the party.
Okay, there you have Robert Sprague, whatever you think of Robert Sprague. He hops around from chair to chair, but he's there pushing relentlessly for everybody to endorse Ramaswamy. You had Frank LaRose doing the same thing.
Lead boldly.
For the coveted GOP endorsement to become the next governor of Ohio.
Ohio's best days.
And Rob McCauley right there in the red tie next to Vivek, he's probably going to be the lieutenant governor. He is the odds-on betting favorite. And then next to Vivek is also Christina Rogner, who wants to become part of the Vivek administration one way or another, I guarantee on that.
What's that gentleman's name again, Joe? I didn't hear the whole thing.
Rob McCauley. Rob McCauley is his name.
McCauley.
Are going to be ahead of us.
He is the, these guys just closed his eyes right there. He is the Senate Speaker. He's the Speaker of the Senate. So he's the highest ranking person in the Senate, state Senate right now. He's going to be term limited out, so he has to do something.
Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy overwhelmingly received the nomination from his party. The Cincinnati businessman and President Donald Trump ally is running on a platform of revitalizing the state.
Issues like population decline, issues like a looming energy and potential electricity shortage in our state, Issues like the educational achievement deficiency.
But not everyone wanted.
See, he's in favor of all that kind of stuff there. The education, the vouchers. He's in favor of doing something to stop the decline of population in the state of Ohio. Tourism. He wants to do something up there with Lake Erie and all that. We can bring people to this state, not only for tourism, but to live here. He's also in favor of getting rid of the income tax. And I did talk to him like last week about property taxes, and he said he's going to have his team look into that and look at how property taxes can be reduced, maybe even eliminated. So he's on our side with that.
Ramaswamy. State Auditor Keith Faber explained that he would have rather waited until it was closer to the election to choose.
I respect Dave, I respect Vivek, and I respect Lieutenant Governor Trussell. So I just didn't think it was time for me to jump in and endorse personally at this point.
As Faber mentioned, Ramaswamy beat out Attorney General Dave Yost. And
now, Dave Yost, by the way, was not at the meeting. He was at the funeral for that police officer that was killed. So he had to do that as his duty as Attorney General. So he was in Cincinnati. He didn't make it up. His wife gave a speech on his behalf. Just to fill you in on that.
Although strategists had been pushing Lieutenant Governor and former OSU football coach Jim Tressel to run, he hasn't officially announced. In a statement Thursday night, he did tell us that he was considering a run for governor.
I think they all have great strengths, and I'll let them communicate that themselves to the voters of Ohio.
So what's next for Ramaswamy? What kind of qualities are you looking for in a lieutenant governor?
Look, I want a governing partner who's going to lead in the areas where we actually want to make a change and drive a difference to the state.
So now the race is heating up for his second in command, with strategists telling us to keep our eyes on Secretary of State Frank LaRose and State Treasurer Robert Sprague.
Do you want to be a lieutenant governor?
Now, what kind of a question is that? Of course, I want to pick me. Pick me.
I'm happy to serve the Vivek's administration however he sees fit.
But the name coming up the most is term-limited Senate President Rob McCauley.
We need leadership that's going to lead boldly, leadership that's going to lead unapologetically in many ways, to make a lot of very tough decisions to get us to that next level. I believe Vivek Ramaswamy represents that our best opportunity to do that.
Still, the primary is a year away, so a lot can change in that time. At the Ohio State House, I'm Morgan Trow reporting.
Okay, yeah, she's right. There is a lot of time to go, but there's other reasons why the endorsement was so important. But I will throw a 2 cents in before I say any more. So,
all right. So, Brian, you want to rock paper or scissors for it? I've got some comments.
Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
You win. Go ahead.
I win. So the first thing is, Joe, each time I hear that about candidates being able to raise money, I've made a decision. I made a decision a couple of years ago to push back on that, always and forever. Now that I know what I know about how politics works, I have been advocating for much more grassroots and a move away from this concept that more money equals better candidates. In fact, I continue to make the argument, and I'm hoping that people hear me on this, that oftentimes, in fact, probably most often, the opposite holds true. When you look at where the money comes from that gets these candidates into office, they're betrothed, I think is the correct word. They're betrothed, they're married to these deep pockets. That's a problem. We're seeing all kinds of examples of that in people in Columbus right now who found their way into office due to the checks written by Big Pharma and those sorts of things. So I don't mean to call you out specifically on that, Joe, because I think that's the mindset that we've always all been in. But I do want to sort of flag that a little bit and spotlight that for attention. Well, I think that we should be thinking much more in terms of building grassroots initiative in Ohio that stands the real possibility of countering the big money influence on politicians. I think ultimately that's the point that I want to make. And in terms of Shelby's comments, I do want to kind of counterbalance. There are a lot of us in the state of Ohio, and I'm one, who has looked at the issue of life and conservative values, and I'm on board. I am a pro-life person. However, I don't think that we can easily win by advocating specifically solely for those. I think tag teaming some things that are really going to get the people that are really undecided or independent, neutral on those types of issues, bringing in other issues to sort of catch them where they are, if you will, does a lot more than just simply saying, like you and I would, that we need to counter that constitutional amendment that advocates for or allows for mass abortion up to the date of birth, and counter that, or add to that with some conversation about the mass taxation in Ohio. We are more taxed than many other states, and we get less for it, arguably, than many other states in union. I think that the whole idea of pushing for conservative positions because we're the people who want to go in and clean up government and fraud and waste and taxpayer abuse, that tag teamed with our positions on things like being pro-life are an easier way forward in the political arena. Hopefully that makes sense, but I want to encourage people to think about the messaging that we decide to rally around. It would be easy, I think, for a group of us, and typically those of us who are on this podcast and many of our listeners, as soon as we hang up that we put that flag up, we're pro-life, and we're advocating against this mass abortion up to and including day of birth, which is egregious and ridiculous and makes Ohio an abortion tourist state. We're seeing it already. We're seeing the leanings in that direction with some of the corporate funding. But add to that with some conversation about what else comes on our slate, and try to get some people into our tent.
Brian, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, one issue that I have is using the changing the Constitution and using it like the Ohio Revised Code.
Right.
It's my understanding that really wasn't the principle behind having a Constitution. We've changed it now probably 177 times, and it's supposed to be the bedrock, the principles of the foundation of the state itself, and it's nothing more than just another extension of the Ohio Revised Code. As far as Vivek Ramaswamy, I certainly think that we need some new blood, in the state offices. I've had, some experience with now very brief, but with Attorney General Yost and everything, going down on that in that building, and I wasn't impressed just with my first 1 hour, session there. I wasn't impressed at all with customer service. So,
but just because Vivek, they kicked you out, Brian, just because they told you to hit the road.
Well, that's
come on, man.
Yeah.
So real quick, just fill that in because that's an interesting story. So you had the 1,800 signatures because your group, by the way, yours is the group that is trying to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to get rid of property taxes. And I saw that it was on television in Toledo. They did a newscast on it. They did a newscast on it in Columbus. I don't know about Cleveland.
Oh, really?
Yes, but it hit the airwaves. I'm saying they did a little special on it. It's short, but still they centered on it in both. In Columbus and Toledo, I know for sure. So it's making some ground waves, okay? Because
that really was just the first hurdle, though, and I don't know if you want to get into. I know you don't want to get into details, but that was just the first hurdle. But it was quite a hurdle, getting 1,800 signatures from 26 different counties, and what's really interesting to me was we could never really get any help from the government, any of our elected officials, any attorneys, We were not trying to do it, pro bono. We were willing to pay, but we didn't have a lineup of attorneys that were willing to help us. It's very interesting. Where we got the most help was from other citizens that had gone through the process, and they instructed us. I had to do this thing 2 or 3 times to, get it correct, and we finally did. But now we have to. Once the ballot board gives their approval, then we're going to have to collect 420,000 signatures.
Yeah, that's the easy part, though. Don't worry about it. Nothing to see there. 420,000 good signatures. But yeah, hey, you're doing a great job with that. Going full circle back now to Vivek and all that, because Tom Z is going to be joining us here in just a minute. So I want to get Shelby on one last time. So Shelby, give me your parting words on this whole thing. I mean, is there any reason why you would endorse? Is there any reason why you would endorse, or is it just absolutely no endorsements at this time, no matter what?
It's an absolute position for me on just no endorsing at this time. It's not a reflection on either one of the candidates, because even though we went to a voice vote on Husted for Senate, I was one of the voices that said no, not to do that. And again, it's not a reflection on either of those gentlemen or their candidacy. It just has to do with cutting people out of the process this early on, when we still have not even reached the filing deadline for potential candidates. I mean, look, we had Marcel Stribich just announced for a Secretary of State run. Right. So what would have happened if in that case we could have effectively cut him out if we would have endorsed for Secretary of State? And by the way, that's my next prediction, is that all those candidates that got up and spoke in favor of Vivek, mm-hmm. they're going to use that with us in the next Central Committee meeting. If it comes up on the agenda, they're going to say, well, you've just done it for Vivek. Why aren't you going to do it for us? We'll see if that holds true or not, but that's my prediction.
All right, gotcha. Well, thanks. I don't know if you got a split or not, but thanks for that input and everything. Yeah, this is a tough one. This was a very tough one here, because I definitely didn't know if we should be endorsing or not. Tom Z is joining us here. How you doing, Tom?
We're well, Joe. We're well. Good. Thanks for inviting me to join you.
Tom Zawistowski. That's a mouthful right there, guys. That is a name and a half. I mean, you got to sign your name on something. You need 2 sheets of paper, right? It just kind of rolls over. Yeah. So I was saying that you were like the original Tea Party leader, right, for Ohio?
Well, I mean, certainly one of them. The Ohio Tea Party movement actually came out of Cincinnati, and it was started, by guys like Chris Long, what's his last name? A bunch of guys in Cincinnati started the Tea Party, and we were a little later getting started here in Northeast Ohio, but we weren't far behind. It all started around, the Santelli statement about we need to start a Tea Party, and it was tax day in 2008 when it started, and I became, I helped start the Portage County Tea Party, and then I later became the head of the Ohio Liberty Council, which was a governing body, a statewide governing body for the Tea Party. And that was a very unique situation. There were only 2 states in the United States that had a statewide Tea Party governing body. And that's where the We the People convention came from. We actually started a convention that we did in the state of Ohio for 10 straight years to organize and train up all of the Tea Party people. So it's been a 15-year run. It's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, you've been doing a fantastic job. I want to switch over to this here for a minute. I got this picture off the Ohio Press Network, but as you can see, these are all the big wigs here. So yeah, Dave Yost, Vivek Ramaswamy, Jim Trussell back there, and of course, looming very big in the background of all of this is Governor Mike DeWine. So the reason I put that up there is I want to read this thing off of NBC News. Henry Gomez, who was saying that DeWine and his advisors were working behind the scenes to deny Ramaswamy an endorsement when the state party meets on Friday. 4 people aware of the effort told NBC News, including one who heard directly from the governor himself. So this was 4 Republicans working close to DeWine who talked to NBC News saying that he is going to try to stop any endorsement for Ramaswamy. He said that also a Ramaswamy ally with knowledge of DeWine's calls, and DeWine was calling state central committee people and stuff and making the rounds to make sure they didn't get past that threshold. They had to get past a supermajority threshold. He said Ramaswamy said that his administration will be remembered for being on the wrong side of every Republican fight. And then another person in, let's see, with DeWine here, said that the establishment isn't just out of touch, the establishment has run out of time. But there was a huge coup. There was a big coup effect to try to get rid of Ramaswamy. And I think that was one of the reasons where when I found out about that kind of was a game changer for me. How about you?
Well, in cards, when you're playing cards, there's things you call tells. Things that kind of show you what the other person has in their hand, and that's a tell. What you saw there was that the fallout. If you go back to where did this all start? It really started, in 2020. 2016, when John Husted, dropped out of the governor's race to become the lieutenant governor for DeWine, so that they could win the primary against what was her name? Guys, I'm not great with names tonight, but anyway, the one who was Kasich's lieutenant governor who was running against DeWine, and it was a deal. It was you drop out and join me. I'll be governor for 8 years, and then you'll be governor for 8 years. That was the deal. And then what happened was when Donald Trump gets back in power, DeWine and Husted go to Mar-a-Lago looking for Donald Trump to endorse John Husted to be governor, and he said, "No, I'm going to endorse Vivek Ramaswamy." And that was a big problem because they knew they could not beat a Trump endorsement here in Ohio. So they ended up, DeWine, could appoint the Senate replacement for J.D. Vance, and he appointed John Husted to be the U.S. Senator because that's the only place John Husted had to go. But then the question was, we can't have Vivek Ramaswamy as governor. That he's not part of the Columbus cartel. He's not. We're not going to be able to control him. So what's the plan? And that's why DeWine was actively working to make sure that Vivek did not get endorsed because they knew that an endorsement would make it easier, not guarantee that Vivek could win the governor's primary or the general, but it would help him immensely. And so, they showed their hand. It was a tell. And basically, we were able to expose that, and we were able to get people in the Ohio Republican Party State Central Committee to not fall for it and to endorse Vivek to kind of block their effort to stop Vivek.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was not, the vote made it seem like it was overwhelming for Ramaswamy, but I can tell you a day or two prior to that meeting, I didn't think he had the votes, to be honest with you. But there was a large number of people in the committee who wanted to be swayed one way or the other at that meeting. Okay? They were like, and I was on the fence a day or two before. It's like, I seriously was saying, now we got to wait. We got to put this off. But then when I heard through other sources about the underhandings of what DeWine was doing, to stop Ramaswamy, to bring Jim Tressel into the fold. And here's something else a lot of people don't understand. And I didn't know this. I just found it out. But when you are a statewide candidate, you have automatically access to all of the benefits of the party. You can work with the party. You can get reduced, postage. You got their emails. You got everything, okay? So if we did not endorse, if there was no endorsement for Vivek Ramaswamy, then Tressel, he has a huge advantage. So does Dave Yost, because they've got all the party backing them, even though they're not endorsed. And that is what is called putting your thumb on the scale. That's really putting your thumb on the scale. So now we've kind of averaged the scale out now just by endorsing him, in my opinion.
Well, I would go further than that. I would say that the Columbus cartel puts a cinder block on the scale of justice, and we in the liberty movement just put our thumb on the scale to try to even it out. Okay, I mean, you're exactly right. That's one example of how things are not fair. But your point was well taken. As I said in the video that I released, when this was first brought to me 3 months ago, I said, what are you people, nuts? We're not going to endorse anybody a year before the primary. I had no interest. I literally didn't. And people I love and appreciate and have worked with for 15 years were ones brought it up. And then it was literally last Saturday at 10 o'clock at night, my phone rings, and one of the members of the State Central Committee was on the phone saying, Tom, we're going to bring it to the floor. And we need to do this. And again, I said, we need to do this? Why do we need to do this? And then I kind of got a bunch of calls on Sunday. And then I said, okay, I've got to get involved because people I care about, people that I encouraged to run for State Central Committee even years ago, people that really are passionate about, having a good Republican Party that's fair, just needed some guidance, needed some way to look at this objectively. And they were getting pressured from all kinds of sides, and it was confusing them, not helping them. And so I basically decided that I needed to sit down, and I called some of the ones that I know and trust, I said, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And then some of my most trusted people, Amanda Suffolk, who's the chairman of the Portage County Republican Party, was president of the Portage County Tea Party when I was the executive director. She's my protege, okay? And she puts out an email saying, we can't endorse in the primary because we care about, honest primaries, and I just can't do it. And that's true. We feel that way. We have been working for 15 years to have a fair primary. And what is that? A fair primary is where the party does not endorse and everybody who wants to run can run, and there's no party influence as far as money or slate cars or any of that. And the voters, heaven forbid, the voters could actually say, of these 5 people, for U.S. Senate or governor or whatever, this is the one who's most popular. That's what we've wanted. But the problem is, that's an ideological fantasy because we've never seen it. Every single Republican primary at a statewide level, at least, has been totally rigged forever. And this one was going to be too. So what was different, Joe, was that because of my experience, because I know the players, okay, I know the Paduchiks and the DeWines and the, all the rest of them, the Borgeses and things, and because I know people like this Henry Gomez, okay, that I know when it's a setup. And what I was able to do is just articulate for the Central Committee, listen, you're absolutely right about your moral stand, but that's not our priority, because our priority is the grassroots movement, is to advance our cause. And what is our cause? Our cause is to break the stranglehold of the Republican establishment in the Columbus cartel on our government and on our tax dollars, so that we can finally elect someone who will represent us, who will do what Donald Trump is doing, right? Donald Trump, it's make America great again. It's America first. We're running that in Ohio. Well, the only way we're going to get that was if we could protect Vivek Ramaswamy and give him a fair chance to win the primary next year, and then he will win the general despite the garbage that they put out that's all smoke about the Democrats. Democrats aren't going to win the Senate seat or the governor seat. No chance in hell.
Well,
So
wait
the
a
question
minute.
is,
He's
who's
got
gonna
to,
win
he's got to go up against Amy Acton. At least,
Oh,
unless they put somebody else.
oh,
They got to go Amy Acton. I don't know if he can do it. I don't know.
I'm
He's
shaking
probably going
in
to
my
outspend
boots.
her about 100-1, but I don't know if he can do it. Brian, what do you think, man?
Yeah, thanks, Tom, for being here. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Brian.
I get worried at the local level. Talk about the Republican Party, and all I see are Democrats. Lake County is a very strong, Republican county, but I see Democrats, coming and joining the Republican Party and getting support from, Republicans. So sometimes I think it's just an illusion.
Well, I think you're right.
It's Republican
I
Party.
think it has been. I think it has been an illusion. I mean, think about this. I mean, Brian, we deal in facts, and you do a great job with your newsletter and this podcast and things. So, we're not talking about opinions. So here's the facts. We in the grassroots have elected every state office holder as a Republican and the biggest super majorities in both the House and the Senate for multiple years now, and we can't get anything we want passed. That's just a fact.
Right.
That's just a fact, okay? And so, who are these people? Well, they're not Make America First. They're not, grassroots, and they're really not elected by us because most of the districts are jerry-rigged. Most of the districts are not fair seats. And what are we always up against? Money. We're always up against money, okay? And so, so the problem we've had, and the State Central Committee is no different. We've worked forever to try to elect people to the State Central Committee. And again, when we started in 2008, 2009, the State Central Committee was so unknown to the average Ohio Republican that most people didn't spend any money running for Republican State Committee. Literally, they just put their names on the ballot because we voted for them, but we had no idea what State Central Committee. I thought it was something that the Russians do, comrade. You're going to be on the Central Committee, okay? And so we started saying, hey, we can run people for State Central Committee. Let's get our people to run. Yeah, pretty soon people started spending tens of thousands, $20,000, $30,000 to make sure we didn't win those seats. Okay?
Yeah.
And
So, Tom,
again, that's been rigged.
am I correct in saying to the people that the legislators, they really don't represent the average citizen, although they may come on the show and they profess they do this and that, they're really representing the donor class.
Right.
And I say that because Representative Ron Young, he was also Commissioner Ron Young. I've got him on tape. It's a couple of years old that said the top priorities of government is to protect itself and grow. The top priority of any politician is to protect himself and get reelected. No mention of what is in the best interest of the average citizens. So it's an illusion.
Fact. Well, that's a fact. So why is that? Okay. Well, why it is because the whole electoral process has been taken over by the moneyed special interests. In other words, it costs a lot of money to run, to buy TV time, to buy, signs, to do all this stuff. So the problem was that unless you were Donald Trump and you could self-fund and you didn't need these other people, you can't run without being beholden to the people who elect you. That's what happened to Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is a great U.S. governor in Florida, probably one of the most qualified people to be president, but he can't run for president without being beholden to billionaires that have to give him the money for him to run. And so we had the same problem here in Ohio. Okay? The problem was no one was going to beat the cabal's candidate, whether that be DeWine or Kasich or Houston, if he was going to be the guy. No one in Ohio could beat them unless you could raise $50 million outside of Ohio. Because if you try to raise money in Ohio, the phone rings. And I'm not, this is again, I deal in facts. I don't deal with rumors. I was there when the phone rang. And John Kasich's on the phone and he says, if you give them any money, we'll destroy your business. The Columbus cartel is a mafia, okay? That's they are. Wow. They're a mafia. And the Ohio Republican Party is a money laundering machine. Because that's what it is. People donate money to get votes. Not votes in our votes, votes from the Senate and the House, okay, so they can pass legislation that helps them. It's that simple. It's pay to play. The only way to break that is a guy like Vivek Ramaswamy who doesn't need them.
Yeah, somebody
doesn't
who
need them.
You're right. Somebody who can jump in, who has the money, and he's got the insider with the Trump administration and everything. So this is kind of like a once in a lifetime. This is the exception to the rule, because I agree we should not be endorsing, but this is, to me, this was the one exception to the rule. And I'll tell you something else. I'm really, really proud of this committee, because I've been on the committee 12 years. I've been on a long time, longer than most people. And when I first got on there, we're talking about Matt Borges. We're talking about corruption.
He's in prison right now.
We're talking about corruption like you can't even imagine. We're talking about a state central committee that is 100% establishment. Okay, I mean, if you remember, very well. You wanted to run for chairman. Remember?
Yep.
And that was the first year I was up on there. But there was I think 5 or 6 or 7 people who were even willing to vote for you. But the rest of the committee,
let me tell you a story about
the
that.
rest of the committee would not do that. Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you a story about that. So why did I run for chairman of the Ohio Republican Party? Because John Kasich, who we elected, became governor, and he summarily fired the guy who was the chairman before that, who was a really good guy. Kevin DeWine was his name. He's a cousin to Mike DeWine, but he was a really good guy and a fair chairman. He was just thrown out, and Matt Borges was put in. And then they said, Matt Borges is going to be named chairman unanimously because no one else in the state wants the job. The job pays like $150,000 a year. No one else in the state wants the job. So I said, I'll run. I want the job. Oh, baby. What? We can't have that. So I'm trying to run for chairman. And Joe, there's 66 state central committee members. I've got the list. I'm calling them to talk to them. None of them will take my call. None of them will meet with me.
Wow. No.
None of them. Okay. I show up at the meeting they let me come to the meeting so I could make a speech and stuff. And they made everybody sign in to the meeting in ink, sign a piece of paper. And then when they had the vote, they made people write their vote on a piece of paper so they could compare who's voted for me with the sign-in list. That's how corrupt these people are.
It is corrupt. So, but the point here is too. We go back those number of years. So we had Borges, total corruption. Okay, and he was. Boy, he was just groomed. He was groomed for that position. I'm telling you, he really was. They pushed him up the ranks because they knew this guy was the kind of guy they wanted at the top. That's how ridiculous politics had become in Ohio. Right. And so finally he was ousted. Timken beat him out barely. I mean, the votes, you have to win by 2 votes, and she was only won by 1. So then there was another vote. She won by 1. And so, but then Borges and her went into a room. Borges said, I'll let you be the chairman. You're going to give me a salary for a year, and I'm just going to leave, but I'm getting paid for a year. Mm-hmm. And that was the what they worked out. That was the deal that was cut and everything. They worked it out and everything. But the point is, we have gone full circle here. We have some outstanding people on that committee. I mean, outstanding people like Shannon Burns, man, top of the line. Shannon is incredible. We got this guy here. I want to bring you in one last time there, Shelby. Shelby's doing a fantastic job. And And there's many like him that have become on the committee who are good grassroots, strong, conservative Republicans. This, what was pulled off, and I know you weren't in favor of it, Shelby, but this what was pulled off on Friday could never have happened in the past. Never. It was a one-of-a-kind event. And
well, I hope it is. And, again, I don't have the history. I'm just about a year on to the State Central Committee. But looking at the history, it looks like it has progressed. I just don't want us to slide into the fact that we become what we didn't want to be. What we've been fighting against, then we become. And that's my fear. And again, as I expressed before, is that if you make this exception, then you set a precedent, and then that's going to continue to be put forth as, well, we can make this exception again, and then again, and then again, and then you become, again, what you were fighting against.
Yeah.
So to address Shelby's point, I think this is really important. I got when I had a chance to speak with Vivek a few times this week, and in one of those conversations, I said, Vivek, you need to understand, at the heart of this, the real problem is the open primary. If there were closed primaries, we wouldn't be having this discussion because you wouldn't be getting endorsed. Okay? I said, so you need to understand that there was 2 resolutions submitted to the resolution committee to close the Republican primary so that Democrats could not vote in it. Now, there's some discussion about whether only registered Republicans can vote or whether Republicans and independents could vote, because quite frankly, the only way you can become a Republican is to vote in the primary. So if you don't let independents vote, you got a problem, okay? And Vivek said to me, Tom, by the way, I'm for that. I said, listen to me then. I need you to make a statement at this meeting that you are for it, and if you are endorsed as the governor candidate, that you will work with the committee and the chairman to get those resolutions to the floor for a vote to pass them in September. And he said he would do that, and I believe, Shelby, he did say something about that, on the floor. Folks, we've never had any Republican of any stature anywhere ever say they were for a closed primary. And to Shelby's point, the way we get to fair elections where we don't endorse starts with the closed primary. And Joe, you mentioned Shannon Burns, who is the architect, as I understand it, of those 2 resolutions, who has come up with a brilliant plan to do that, to challenge the law, because our problem is the open primaries are in the state legislature. There's a law that has to be repealed, and Shannon Byrne has come up with a great legal position to do that. And so, Shelby, I think you're absolutely right, and the goal is we've got to stop it, but I'm going to be all over Vivek Ramaswamy to lead that effort to make sure that we close the primaries.
Absolutely. Jonathan, I'm going to get you in here, man. Go ahead.
All right. Oh, goody. My turn. How long do I get? Do I have an hour? I've got a backlog here. First of all, Tom Z, thanks for joining us. I'm a big follower of your work. Anybody who's not familiar, I'm going to plug Tom Z. Go to wethepeople.org and sign up. You'll get a text alert every once in a while. Tom Z puts out some really good stuff, including on this topic. A few days ago, I'm going to share with you my evolution because I think it represents a lot of people, including many in our state central committee. I was adamant, and I was chiming in all over social media saying, no, absolutely not. We don't endorse. We certainly don't endorse this early. And I think there was a pretty general uproar against the very notion of endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy. However, it was actually Tom Z released a really interesting video. I suggest, even though this is past, go watch it, because I think it will inform the other side of the argument, the for endorsement under these circumstances. Tom's done a really good job during this show, but that Tom put together a great release. I think it's only about 9 minutes or something. That's just an open letter to our state central committee. Thanks for doing that, Tom. I actually reposted that. And so, frankly, I'm one of those people who within a span of days was posting in absolute opposition to endorsement and then saying, hey, look at what Tom Z said. This is actually really a compelling argument. And so that led to a lot more arguments. I think that kind of got the camel's nose under the tent, so to speak. A couple of things all at once, and I'd love to have Tom Z's opinion and chime in on this. As most followers of this show know, I am the founder of Ohio Rhino Hunters. Pardon me. And you're right. We've got a major issue with uniparty, rhinos, these trans Democrats all throughout the Republican Party, and we need to find ways of fighting back. And one of them is closing the primaries, because we've got this tepid, lukewarm, from the outside, Ohio looks like we are the trifecta, that we have Republicans all throughout. However, when you actually look at the voting record, behaviors, bills, and legislation, we have much more of a uniparty, and it's no good. We need to do a better job of fighting. A few other things as they occurred to me, I made a couple of notes. Tom, you said something early on about a tell, and it is a clear tell where our opposition, where the bad guys are willing to spend their money. And you talked about state central committee, and you can put your name on the list and you might get it voted in because nobody really paid attention to state central committee. But use as comparison our state school board. Those races recently went up to $95,000 per, mostly sponsored and funded by teachers unions. In similar light, in a very similar comparison to state central committee, it's absolutely where our enemies have their sights. When we look at things, and I want to put this in a clear context because I'm headed to a question for Tom Z. When you look at the bad guys and what they're doing, and there are many, one recent example is the expansion of these Islamic centers in the U.S. that are moving toward Sharia law, supplanting our Constitution. The reason and the way that those people who are within the United States fighting against our foundation, our very principles in our Constitution, have gotten that power is because they've paid attention to politics. They learned and figured out how our political system works, and we've been ignoring it. So there are two pieces to this. Tom, I get the sense from some of the things you've said, you and I may disagree on precinct strategy. As a side note and plug for our listeners, Dan Schultz and I are co-heads of a national effort to inform on precinct strategy. So Tom, I'd like your opinion on the use of precinct strategy in Ohio. That's ohioprecinctstrategy.org. That's the website. And the last piece, and it all fits together. Yes, you're right that money rules all in the world of politics, but there is a counter to that. It's money versus an informed electorate. And kudos to Tom Z and people like him who created the Tea Party to create an informed electorate. But I don't ever want to lose sight of the possibility that some point in the future, if we bring back civics and we create an informed electorate, that maybe information can surpass the power of the purse.
So, Jonathan, thank you, for that, and I appreciate, the fact that you put the video on your Facebook. You should tell people your Facebook address so people can go there and watch it, right? I mean, that would be a good place to do that. Your points are well taken. They laid out the template. We can take over the county central committees. Half the seats aren't filled. It's a low cost race. We can do it. And as the head of the Ohio Liberty Coalition and then the Ohio Liberty Council, which became the Ohio Liberty Coalition, I worked tirelessly to try to organize that both at the county level and at the state level. And quite frankly, the only place that we really, really got it done was in Portage County. In Portage County, my goal was to make it a demonstration. Okay, when we started the Tea Party in Portage County, every single elected official in the county was a Democrat. Had been since 1958. There was the chairman of the Republican Party was a Democrat, whose job it was to make sure no one ever got on the ballot as a Republican that could beat a Democrat. That's how bad it was. Okay, we organized. Our group became one of the biggest Tea Parties in the country. We had 2,600 members of the Portage County Tea Party in a 140,000 population county. Okay, we elected Rob Portman and John Kasich. I'm sorry to say, I have to admit that we did. We elected Donald Trump. We made Donald Trump president because if Donald Trump doesn't win Northeast Ohio in 2016, he's never president of the United States. No chance in hell. We did that. We then started to run people, Jonathan, as you said. We used the precinct strategy. Who's on the central committee? What seats are open? Do we have members who can fill them? We started to put our members in. They started to do all the other bull crap like, oh, we used to elect them every 2 years. Now it's going to be every 4 years. Oh, the chairman is going to just come in before the chairman vote and appoint 27 of their best friends to the committee so they could vote for them for chairman. And we fought through that and worked through that and did all that. And then Amanda Suffolk, and some of our other members started to get where they ran for some of the chairmanship positions in the Portage County Republican Party. And then finally, we won. We took it over. We threw out the corrupt people. And the difference has been unbelievable. Every single elected official in Portage County is a Republican now. Every single one of them. Okay? And we've got this, situation where we've got very conservative, elections and people we elect are citizen patriots. They're not politicians. They're all business people. And so we did it in Portage County. But I haven't been able to get it done anywhere else in the state. Anywhere.
We're doing it in Geauga.
Well, there's that. Oh, Nancy McCarthy? Oh, yeah? You're doing it in Geauga? Okay, I'm all for it, and I'll help you. But, boy, there's something in the water in Geauga County because you people are freaking nuts. You're freaking insane. I've never seen anything like the fratricide in Geauga County of people with egos who just destroy each other. So I'm with Jonathan. I'll be watching that. I got my popcorn. I'll be cheering for you, and I'll help you, man. But I'll believe that when I see it.
Okay, I know I know that Dale Fellows is putting together a whole listing of all the chairmans, and he's going to work with them, and he's working with the Ohio Republican Party also to do that. And I think he's going to make some good progress with all of that. But there's a lot of problems with the chairman. I don't care what county you're in. There's problems with a lot of the chairmen. Either they don't do a dang thing. That's probably the biggest problem. They don't do
so things are systemic.
Damn thing, and they're
systemic.
The chairman.
Okay, so listen, why is anyone a chairman? Why would anyone become a chairman of a county Republican Party?
I think because it's for your political career, right?
No, there's one reason.
What's up?
Health benefits. Health benefits, gentlemen.
Okay.
Go look it up.
Okay.
Every one of the chairmen can be on the Board of Elections. And a few years back, when we started putting pressure on these chairmen, they passed a law where I think Amanda told me that her health care benefits, as she's chairman of the party, but she's on the Board of Elections, is worth like $24,000 a year.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, I didn't know that. Yeah, I had no idea about that.
But that's the problem, Joe. We don't know shit.
No, we don't know. We don't know.
And I'm here to tell you so you know, okay? Let me explain some things to you, okay? Here's what I've said. I've said all along. Why the hell are we the people paying for elections for private organizations like the Republican and Democratic Party? Why did we just pay? I don't know what this cost us to set up all the machines and stuff 2 weeks ago to have an election, but it's probably like $20 million. Why did we do that? I wanted to pass a law. I would love a constitutional amendment that says that the Board of Elections positions are on the ballot and that anyone can run for them. Because guess what? 70% of the people in every election are independents. So why are there 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the Board of Elections? Why? And those Board of Elections get to decide, if you're an independent, how many signatures you need to get on the ballot. Oh, that's fair. Okay, that's fair. Guess what? If you took away the Board of Election seats, there would be no county parties. There would be no county parties. because no one would do that damn job.
Nobody wants to do the job. Well, okay. There might be somebody somewhere might want to do it, but yeah, I tell you, to me, that's the key, man. You got to get some good chairmen in there in these counties. But Leonard, do you have a question for Mr. Zawistowski?
No, I just wanted to thank him for coming on. And is Shelby still out there?
Let me check. He might be. But go ahead and talk anyhow.
If not,
Let's see if
I just wanted to applaud him because a lot of times we use the word conservative, which means nothing to me, and but he has Christian conservative in front, and that's meaningful. Now, in a society where we are ungodly, we are uneducated, and we got an impotent church, Shelby is dead on about the fact that if we don't get back to what God has called us to do, we'll never have blessings on this state. Now, when he says Christian in front of his name, I'll tell you why that's meaningful. We've allowed pluralism to take place and become our new God in this country. And even when you look at our Constitution, I think it was Article 6, Clause 3, is when we actually took away the religious test. Okay, so what that means is when you see the rise of Islam and any other thing that goes, we're saying it's okay. And God does not allow that if you're breaking the first commandment. So that's the first thing that's going to kill us. And then secondly, when we start talking about this whole issue of vetting candidates, that means nothing because we don't even ask the right questions. We just put people in there, we throw the conservative tag on them, and we really don't understand what that person stands for because all politics is theologically driven. So my question always is, how do you differentiate between right or wrong? And I can never get a right answer. It's always politics. So God has a lot to say about taxation. He has a lot to say about education, and you can go down the line. It's not just the abortion issue. So when I see the word Christian, that tells me I'm getting a holistic person that hopefully understands the word of God and will apply it to every area of life. If not, you can kiss it goodbye.
Okay. Very good. Very good. I like that. I like that. Tom, I'm going to let you just wrap it up here with you. Maybe you can give a closing thought on the whole thing with Vivek Ramaswamy and the endorsement and all that. But thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it, man. I hope that we can have you on again because you're a wealth of information, and we really enjoyed this discussion here tonight. But if you had to put a cap on the whole thing, what would you do? What would you say?
Yeah, I think the big question is, where do we go from here? That's really what it's really about. So we did something dramatic. We did something that was very hard for us to do. We were generally against it, and this was critical. So the question is, where do we go from here? So a couple things. What does Vivek Ramaswamy do next? Okay, does he recognize that the grassroots were responsible for his win and move towards us and give us access to his campaign so that we can have a say in, for instance, who he picks for his lieutenant governor, what he does as far as policy and things going forward? I had one of the conversations, again, I had short conversations, didn't have a lot of time to say things, so I tried to make it count. I said to Vivek, understand you can't just run for governor, because even if you win, if you don't get involved with remaking the party and with the House and Senate races and with the other state office holder races, if you become governor and the cabal hates you, they will sandbag you. They will stop everything you want to do. You have no choice. You can't just run for governor. That was a revelation to him. He had not heard that. He's a lot like Donald Trump in his first term. He's naive about who his friends are and who his enemies are. He doesn't have our background, okay? So that's a concern. Number two, what does Dave Yost do? Dave Yost got a big message. Whose side are you on, Dave? Are you going to move towards the grassroots? Are you going to get with the MAGA movement and with the remaking Ohio? Or are you going to just move towards the cartel? I've heard already things like they're thinking about a Yost Trestle ticket, combining those guys. They may do that. It's real simple. Everybody on this, who's watching this, you need to understand one thing. we still are going to be hard pressed to win the primary in May of next year, because they're going to bring hundreds of thousands of Democrats into the Republican primary if we don't close the primary, and they're going to do everything they can to keep us from closing the primary. So then, Joe, what I have to do as the strategist for the Tea Party movement, I have to think about it as to, well, what would I do? What would I, if I were them, what would I do? Well, what have we seen them do over and over? When Renacci was a real threat to DeWine, what happened? Oh, this guy named Joe Blystone shows up. Okay? To do what? To split the conservative vote so Renacci can't win. And I'll go to my deathbed believing that DeWine and those guys were funneling money to the Blystone campaign, or at least helping them stay in the race. Okay? So what would I do? Well, one of the biggest attacks is going to be on Vivek is that he's Hindu. Leonard just talked about Christian values. They're going to try to make a big attack on that. So you know what they're going to do? What I would do if I were them? I'd put a Christian conservative in the primary. I'd put something like
to steal votes,
just to blow up Vivek, to move some MAGA people like Leonard maybe away. If I put J.C. Church up or someone like that, okay, that's what they're going to do. What are we going to do? How do you counter that? If Vivek's smart enough to call me and talk to me about what he should do, he needs to take as a lieutenant governor a strong Christian like Christina Rogner. You guys saw, Joe, you saw Christina there at the event. There's no bigger, more established Christian conservative in Ohio than Christina Rogner. She is just, so well known in the life movement in particular. And she's very bright, and she's got a boatload of money, okay? And so you counter their having a Christian on by, what is that called? It's called the Mike Pence move, right? Remember when Trump took Pence as vice president? Why was that? To get the Christian vote, he needed to win. So there's a lot still to come. And the bottom line is going to be, we're going to have our hands full, because if you look at the polling, gentlemen, every poll out there shows that the people who are most against Trump are people in my age group, 65 plus. The people who are still stupid enough to watch the local news and MSLSD and CNN and ABC and NBC and all that stuff and believe their bullshit lies about Trump. Those are the people who now have a disapproval rating of Trump. The people who have an approval rating of Trump are young. Who is Vivek Ramaswamy really popular with? Young people. Young people. So what do we got to do? We've got to put together a grassroots movement that brings in these young people for Vivek. It's going to be a very different primary, and it's going to take a very different tactic and strategies to win it, okay? But that's part of why you can't have a closed primary that independents can't vote in, because you need to have all those young people who aren't registered to, in either party to come in and help elect Vivek. So we got our hands full, gentlemen, and quite frankly, I don't know if we're going to have a role in it at all, because the strategists who advise all these people who have lots of money, their whole strategy is, you have $50 million, you don't need those grassroots people. Okay? And so they're going to spend $50 million in lies on each side about each other. Okay? And how do you determine who wins that? Well, I think it's determined by people who basically are believable. People have a history of credibility. When people are completely confused by the TV commercials because they're all lies, and they finally come to people like your podcast and to the groups around the state and say, who do I vote for, man? And they count on us to say, listen, we're working with them, we have input in them, this is what you got to do. I don't know if we're going to have that, gentlemen. I don't know if we're going to be in that position. And so it's going to be hell next year. I'm not looking forward to it at all. It's going to suck, because it already sucked last year with Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno, these guys. You couldn't tell up from down. It was such blatant propaganda. And unfortunately, that's what we're going to go through again in 2026.
Well, thank you, Tom, man. That is a lot to think. I got to chew on that for a while because, okay,
you'll be putting this podcast in slow motion.
I've got to chew on that for a while. Yeah. Because, well, first of all, we just got Ramaswamy endorsed, okay? So that was the first step. Now, all this other political strategy that you're mentioning comes into play, and it's going to be ruthless. DeWine does not want to give up the throne. He does not, and he won't. So we'll see what happens.
We have to take it from him.
We have to take it from him.
They won't give it up. Donald Trump learned that from first term to second term. He ain't messing around. I'm just going to take it. I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to play politics. I'm going to use force. We are going to have to do the same.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it, man.
God bless all you guys. Leonard, all you guys. Sheldon, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you
good
very
job.
much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Wow. Now that's some heavy-duty strategy that he's talking about there. That is really getting deep. That's deeper than I would have even taken it. I mean,
I'll tell you what, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Joe, he took it somewhere that's near and dear to me. What Tom is talking about, I took this term from a good friend of mine who is very involved political. He's not really a political strategist, but he's more knowledgeable in politics than I'll probably likely ever be. He called it coalition warfare, and I adopted that term years ago. We have, you may not know this, but listening audience, but we have an incredible network of grassroots organizations throughout the state of Ohio. There are Tea Party groups and former Tea Party groups that have turned into something else with a new name, and all kinds of different patriot clubs, groups, and organizations all throughout the state, and they all care. They all have similar missions of bringing true constitutional conservative values and bringing America back again, reclaiming our nation, and growing, expanding, and building that network. I know a lot of the leaders personally. I've actually made a point of it. It started for me when I was involved with Protect Ohio Children, and we were dealing with K through 12 issues. I got to know the leadership of many of those organizations on a personal level. But going forward on fights like this, when we fight against legislative issues or fighting or advocating for a political person, then it just makes all the sense in the world. And wherever you live in the state of Ohio, find some of those clubs and groups and organizations and follow them. Go to their meetings, follow them online, watch their posts and podcasts. Tom Z is among them. Tom Z is online commentary and newsletter, but there are many different flavors that you'll find to this thing. There are groups that have regular recurring speaker series. There are some that do text notifications. You've got Grassroots Freedom Initiative, which was started by Mark Pukita. He does little short, concise videos that he puts out. Follow Grassroots Freedom Initiative or GFI Ohio. Follow all of them that you can find, and then get more people into it, because that is what wins the battle. You heard me say earlier, I was talking about informed electorate. That's an informed electorate. When we take it upon ourselves to share information and collaborate.
You got it. Brian, let's just talk for a minute about the property tax stuff, you and Leonard. So what's happening?
Yeah, Leonard's
now?
on.
What's
He can chime in on this also.
Leonard, who wants to start? Leonard or you?
You want to start?
Well, yeah. One of the things that I'm confused about, and I know Brian probably answered this, if they say that there's multiple issues or multiple amendments that are involved in what we have just submitted, what is the deliverable to us to say, okay, here's what you need to do to correct it? Or will they give us some ballot language that we have to incorporate these changes? That's what I'm not sure about, because to me, the first part, I'm not saying it was easy, but just the work associated with getting to 1,800 was not a piece of cake. And now you start talking about a larger scale now. If we don't have our ducks in a row and really understand what we're dealing with, I mean, I'm just uncomfortable right now. So I'm not saying this is a slam dunk in no stretch of the imagination.
No, it's definitely not a slam dunk. It's one of the most difficult tasks. But, it's a good question. You submitted that first part. Yost approved the language, the title. Now it's got to go to the ballot board if it's one or two issues. If they say that it's two issues, what happens then?
I don't see how they can say it's two issues. What we're saying is we are going to abolish the property taxes on real property. Period. Paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
pretty straightforward.
It's it's pretty straightforward. So as I understand it, again, we've never gone through this before, and there's no official, be it our state reps or state senator or any of the offices, will actually educate the public, because they will say that we can't give you legal advice. So we're flying a little blind, and we're really depending on other citizens that have gone through this before. But as I understand it, now that we have the approval from the Attorney General on the language, it goes to the ballot board. We don't anticipate, really any problems, from that. And once they give us the ballot language, then we put that ballot language on the petitions that the citizens will now sign. And it will then, we have a round numbers, 420,000 we must collect, and we must collect it from at least 44 counties. And those 44 counties, there's a minimum number of signatures that we must receive from each one of the counties. So there is a lot of detail. The details that we had to go through for 1,800, I personally had to do it 2 or 3 times just to make sure that we had it correct, and we finally got it correct because of the input that we received from other patriots that had done this before. And we tried to reach out to our representatives. They don't even call us back. You can't really call the state offices. So this whole thing of the state, helping the citizens, it's all just an illusion, as I say. We have to. This is one issue, though, that we are being told it's really gaining momentum, and people are telling us not only in Lake County but many other counties, all the way down to Hamilton County. They're saying that people want to sign these petitions. They want us to get the petitions, and what we'll be doing is once we get the language, we will create the petition. We'll have it all professionally printed, and then we are going to go full steam ahead. We have until, I think it's July 2nd, if we want to, to get all of the signatures, if we want it on the November ballot. But if we can't get it by July 2nd, we will then shoot for the May election in 2026, and that'll give us, I think, ample time to get all the signatures. And what I am being told by elected officials is that they are worried at the state, because if we get the number of signatures, they're saying that it has a definite chance of passing.
Oh, absolutely. Who would vote no again? Who would vote no?
Bind.
Yeah. Who would vote no? That would be the first thing. Who would vote no? And secondly, who would not sign that petition? So, wow. So that's going to be, once that ballot board approves it as one issue, it's got to be we got to get as many grassroots groups as possible involved in this in all the different counties and stuff, and start getting those signatures. 100%,
Joe, that's correct.
Yeah.
And
yes.
we will do our.
Absolutely.
We
Hey,
are
Joe,
going to create some videos for circulators. 3-5 minute videos telling the circulators this is what you must do, this is what you can't do. So that is in progress right now. And we'll also, create some ads that we will use as social media. Now, this is a true grassroots. We don't have, the billionaires that are, supporting us at all. And we're not getting any real support from any of our state representatives at all, because If they were really interested in the citizens, they would have at least addressed this problem in the last 2 years, and they did nothing, absolutely nothing. So, and we're being told by other, county auditors and state reps that they're not going to do anything. So unless the people
they don't want their fingerprints
stand
on it.
up and sign these petitions, they are going to get taxed out of their homes. No question about it.
Yeah, it's you guys are doing excellent work. Go ahead and wrap it up tonight, Jonathan.
Yeah. Well, first let me take a sip of my delicious beverage here in my Ohio Political News mug. Don't cut away. I'm shamelessly plugging our merch for Ohio Political News. So actually, I have a question for Brian. I don't know if you can answer this, but I think it's worth asking if you do have any sort of general sense. You mentioned that in creating this ballot language and the initiative and navigating the steps to get it as far as it's gotten, you're getting the sense that you have little or no help from our elected officials, from getting legal help from lawyers, etc. Do you have any sense for what that process looks like on the other side? Because the leftists, the anti-American cabal, whatever they are, on the Marxist left, they seem to do this once or twice a year. And I mean, does it work differently for them? Do they just have easy street in getting these things crammed into our state constitution and onto the ballot?
I don't know the answer to that directly, but it would be my guess that they've got the money behind them. Evil always seems to have money behind it, and I think the lawyers are more are tempted to be they don't even have to be Ohio lawyers. They can be anywhere in the country. They will step in and help the average citizen, and what they also do is they'll pay people to collect the signatures. We're not paying anybody. This is all grassroots. This is truly a citizens-led initiative, and it's coming out of our pocket. We're going to ask average citizens, $5-10 at a time to help us, pay for some of this. But we're funding it all on our own right now.
There you go. Well, you can tell the people.
You bring up a good point, Brian. Actually, I'm going to interject. I mean,
sure.
What's to stop us from going to Dave Yost's office? Go to Yost's office and make the recommendation. Actually, it wouldn't be Yost. It would be our legislature, and create some sort of transparency language that requires anybody out there with those clipboards, and you see them, that army of people that run around in different parking lots all over the state collecting signatures for petitions. I think it should have a big, giant, bold sign on there if they are getting paid to collect those petitions, because that changes things. In my book, it's a completely different dynamic. When they're paid agitators, or people sometimes shipped in from out of state on these luxury buses and they're paid to go out there.
Yes.
And some of those paid people, there are all kinds of stories. I can tell you some of my own. They will do whatever it takes to get their money. And they'll lie to people and get signatures on that clipboard. Once it gets onto our ballot, it is a different kind of a fight. I think, personally, there should be some transparency around that. If they're getting paid to collect signatures, it should be disclosed.
I think it is.
I support that, Jonathan.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Where is it? Where is it disclosed?
Well, they ask you. I know on the petition itself, they ask if you're being paid to do this. When we were looking at that, so now whether or not that's recorded somewhere or
they're not telling. I think Jonathan's saying they should tell the people that are actually signing the petitions. They don't know whether they're paid or not.
Yeah.
The people signing
going
it.
Going back to your other. Yeah, and that to me is something that I think could be addressed. But Brian, going back to your other point, some of some of the organizations that we consider to be conservative, they're not as conservative as we think, and so they have a lot of inside pull as far as moving the legislatures to the way they want them. And basically they represent a lot of the lobbyists and some of the other people that are there moving things around. And you're right, they have money to do that. And that makes a big difference. So we're up against a whole nother dynamic, as Jonathan stated, and that changes the playing field significantly.
Yeah, what we're hoping for is as we continue to get signatures, we will have some of these, quote, conservative groups, jump on the bandwagon and then support us. But, as of right now, no one really is supporting us because they know there's a lot of people that are eating at the government trough here on the property taxes. And we're being asked by township administrators, well, how are we going to fund, police and fire and roads and bridges? And we said there's no problem in the state collecting revenue, generating revenue. Never seems to be a problem in the state. The problem is curtailing the expenditures by these taxing authorities. There are no checks and balances, and what we see happening in Geauga and Lake County and Northeast Ohio is that the taxing authorities are accumulating massive amounts of money, and the schools are just spending, and they keep asking for more money, and the people unfortunately are voting emotionally, and some of the school boards, they don't have the financial acumen to really determine whether or not the school needs the money or not. They just say, we need the money. And no one's looking out for the taxpayer.
I'll tell you what,
problem.
This is also an issue, though, that I think Democrats could definitely get behind as well. There's some Democrat lawmakers that are behind this, stopping the property taxes.
Oh yeah, this is not a partisan issue.
Yeah,
I
it's
agree,
not a Republican
Joe.
issue.
Democrat or Republican.
That's the
all.
beauty of it. Yeah, it's Republican, it's Democrat, it's everything. So it's just people that want to
But
get rid of the
some of
property
the
taxes.
arguments that we get from people why they pay taxes it's just mind blowing to me. I just don't. I think I've said before that there are some people that do not correlate going to the ballot box to sign up for increases in the levies. They don't know that's increasing their property taxes, believe it or not.
Right.
And many of the people will say, well, you got to vote for these school levies because that'll keep our property values high.
Yeah,
and that one
they're such
that
idiots.
Blows my
They're
mind
such
too.
idiots. How can you? Yeah, how is it that you have no money to do any repair work to your house? Okay, you have no money because you're giving it all to the school, but somehow that's increasing the value of the street and everything else. It's a great.
It's funny you
gimmick.
mention that, Joe. That is happening down in. I saw an article that I think it was down in Hamilton County, in southern Ohio, where they were saying that we can't fix up our homes because we're paying these taxes, and people have now come to realize that home ownership really is just another illusion. There's no true home ownership because you're merely just a renter because of the property taxes.
Right, and one last thing on that, I see where Ron DeSantis in Florida has been talking a lot about the fact that they need to do something about property taxes, like eliminate them. And if they could do it in Florida, we could do it here in Ohio. It'd be neat for us to do it before.
Yeah, we're
that.
going to keep pushing with Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah, I think he'll get behind you.
We're not going to let that go. For some reason, they want to eliminate income tax in Ohio and leave the property taxes. They say cap them or something like that. I'd rather see the other way around. Eliminate the property taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, I'm going to split on out of here. Have a good night. Thanks you. God bless, and happy Mother's Day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Joe.
Jonathan. Thanks, Leonard.
Good.
See ya.
All right, thanks, Ryan.